Hey, I'm Ron Drotos from keyboardimprov.com, and welcome to our journey through the real book, number 217, Antonio Carlos Jobim's great Bossa Nova, Look to the Sky. And this whole series of jazz piano lessons is designed to get us looking at these tunes with a slightly wider perspective than we might if we're just learning the tune or listening to one recording of it or something. We're just widening our perspective historically, culturally, in terms of how this relates to other tunes by the same composer and others, and how it relates to us. That's the main thing, right? We want to play. We want to express ourselves through this music. How do we do that? So we're going through the real book one tune at a time, one a week. This is the 6th edition, Falling Apart. It's a badge of honor. When your real book falls apart, it means you're using it. And this book has a wealth of information that is often taken for granted. It's like, oh yeah, there's another book, another fake book, volume 30 of so-and-so. But you know, if you really take the time to look at these tunes, the last one was Lonnie's Lament by John Coltrane, and now Look to the Sky by Jobim. They're completely different tunes, but they're basically under the umbrella of jazz. And so we can learn so much if we use each of these tunes as a doorway into learning about that particular part of the jazz universe and really going into depth about it. That's, I think, one of the biggest values of this. Not just a bunch of tunes to learn, although that's fun too, right? We need to learn tunes because that's how we play. We usually play on tunes. So who was Antonio Carlos Jobim? Antonio Carlos Jobim is the most famous, certainly, and possibly greatest, but what does that mean, of the Brazilian Bossa Nova composers. And he was highly influenced by classical music, most famously Chopin. He based his song How Insensitive on Chopin's Prelude in E minor. And the thing that fascinates me about Jobim, and I think in a way at least I can relate it to Chopin, I don't know if he was thinking specifically about it in this case, but when you look at pieces by Chopin, like his preludes, just take any group of pieces, they're all really varied. You know, the basic form might be, in Jobim's case, 32 bar song forms, or in Chopin, or not always 32 with the Jobim. We'll get to that in a second. But with Chopin, you know, maybe it was an A-B-A form, or in the smaller pieces, just an A kind of. But within that, there's huge variety of not just music or melodies or chord progressions, but ways to approach the form. It's fascinating. So, you know, if you know Girl from Ipanema or How Insensitive, you look at a tune like this, you're like, oh, well, that's really interesting, and it's very different than the other tunes in some ways. Some of Jobim's tunes have chord progressions that were very related to jazz tunes of the time. Others, it's very different. How Insensitive would be very different than most jazz tunes at the time. Look to the Sky is fairly similar to it, and the form is basically 16 bars and then the same 16 bars with a slightly different ending. Maybe A, B, or A prime, however you want to look at it, or A, B, A, C, kind of. Maybe A, B prime would be the best. So we have 8 measures that are the same both times. So we have an A. It's a little vague, right? Because that's not even, you can't even say the first 8 measures is a section. So I'll go back on that. I'll say A prime, meaning like a little 1. It's a little different the second time. So what jazz tunes are like this? Standards. All of Me is like this, right? This is not Take the A Train, which is A-A-B-A. All of Me has 16 and 16, where the second 16 ends a little differently than this. So that's a good start. And what about the chords? Well, it's interesting because you know, these tunes were written in the, well, this is in the 60s, but he started writing in the late 50s, so people like Miles Davis were big at the time. I remember in the late 80s, 87, 88, when I was Jerry Mulligan's assistant, the great jazz saxophonist, he met up with, they were old friends, Jobim, and Jobim was visiting New York City, and Jerry drove in and had dinner with him. And I saw him the next day, Jerry, and he said that Antonio Carlos Jobim was telling him what a big influence Jerry Mulligan had been on him, because Jerry started a little earlier, early 50s, and Jobim was taking sort of the popular music of Brazil, and sort of he and the other bossa nova composers slowing it down a little bit, chilling it out. It's not up-tempo like a lot of sambas. And chilling it out and bringing in a big jazz influence, particularly from cool jazz, which was Jerry Mulligan and Miles Davis at that time. So the chord progression, E flat major 7 going to E flat minor 7, A flat, well, that's the same as Miles Davis's tune 4. And listen to this. Very similar to 4. So maybe Look to the Sky was based on the tune 4. The shape of the melody is almost the same. It certainly uses the same notes. And then the chord changes are the same for the first 4 measures. But with Jobim, the thing that fascinates me is that he starts out a tune, and then I think he was very open to where it would go. He didn't have a preconception, like, okay, I'm on the 1 chord, now I've got to go to the 6, now the 2-5. He put those things in there, but each tune kind of has its own harmonic path. It's very unique to it. Unlike, say, even like a Gershwin or somebody who might use the 1-6-2-5 a lot. So that's one characteristic of Jobim that I think he got from the classical composers too, Chopin, big time. It's a wonderful bossa nova in the key of E flat. Check out 4 because it's very similar in a lot of ways. Even later on, it has some of the 3rd line. That's 4. And he goes. Wow, amazing the correspondence between this and 4. You know, and actually I just discovered that as I'm talking to you right now. I never noticed that before. Like, whoa, it's exactly the same as 4, or almost exactly the same as 4. Certainly influenced by it. And then at the end, he just stays on this B flat. When he goes to these substitute chords. And that's like One Note Samba. Another tune of his, but in a different context. So you see these similarities between his tunes, but they're very different in how they sound and how the tunes unfold. So each of Jobim's tunes is sort of a unique invitation to explore this particular sort of musical painting. So I'm just going to start right in with the melody and see where it goes. Beautiful tune, beautiful tune. You know, it's almost a shame that a lot of Jobim's tunes are associated with so many people with, you know, sort of background music gigs or cocktail parties at weddings that people play. And okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you play them all the same. You know, each of these, and you can get all these different textures. Or more rhythmic. Or very lyrical. There's a real wide range of expression that's possible in a bossa nova that I think you'll hear that, you know, I was exploring. And it's not necessarily what most people do. So have fun. Don't get locked into one particular way of playing bossas. They're within the same tempo. There's many ways to explore different pianistic textures. Hey, thanks for being here. This is a journey of love for me, and I hope for you too, going through whether this is the first tune or you're spot checking. Okay, let's see if Ron's done this tune yet or whatever, to help you with individual songs, but also as a journey through this whole book, as a body of work. It's just amazing to go through these and explore them. So thank you for being here and sharing this with me. As always, enjoy the journey, let the music flow, and good luck with every bit of your playing.